Hello, good morning and welcome. I'm Jen.
And I'm Neil.
And we're really glad you've tuned in with us today. We've got some interesting things coming up today. We are doing a sermon series at the moment, which is called Project Other, not Project Others, as I said last week. Project Other. And today is God's truth, not my truth.
Yeah, well, see what that's about.
Yeah, so we're thinking the reason to listen is that maybe you are bombarded by different truths, society telling you this, people telling you that, friends saying this, what you're doing is wrong, or doing right, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's really hard to pick out the truth. Now, Jesus says that he is the truth. So is that right? Should we believe that? And are there two in contention with other, or are they saying the same thing? Let's have a recap about what this series is about now.
We love to celebrate the stories of people who put their lives on the line for something bigger than themselves. But increasingly, we are being encouraged by the media and influencers to celebrate those who unshamedly self-promote and push themselves into the limelight rather than looking to the needs of others. We've stopped venerating those that sacrifice for others and have begun to venerate those that look after number one. Now, nobody changed the world like Jesus did, but even he who mattered more than any other human who has ever walked the earth spent his life giving himself away to others. He called us to follow in his footsteps. Whoever loses their life will find it.
This is great. This morning, we're going to look at God's truth, not my truth. God's truth, not my truth. So I'm just going to have a straw poll, so just a raise of hands will do. What is your favorite sort of cuisine or takeaway food? If you had a choice of what restaurant you could go to, what would it be? Let's have a hand up for Chinese foods. Okay, we've got a couple of hands. Brilliant. Okay, hands down. Hands up for Indian foods. Okay, hands down. Hands up for Mexican foods. Yeah. Here's one for my dad. Hands up for English foods. Something normal, yes. Peas and chips, quite right. Any others that I've missed out you like? No, this is my favorite. Thai foods. Okay, yeah, got so hands up for Thai. Anything else? KFC, so American food, cool. When I went to Luton, I was in Luton before I came here. I was introduced to this amazing restaurant in Milton Keynes. I think it was called Red Hot. And it was one of these places, I don't know if you've been to an all-you-can-eat buffet. You get you go in and you can just help yourself until you've absolutely stuffed. But this place, rather than just being all-you-can-eat Chinese or all-you-can-eat Indian, it was all-you-can-eat whatever cuisine you can think of. There was the American section, there was a Chinese section, there was the Indian section, there was a whole section just for ice cream of all the stuff you can put on it. The only problem is that my stomach wasn't big enough to try everything. See, we don't have to settle for one thing anymore. We can have a bit of what we like from all around the world. We live in a cosmopolitan world. If COVID has shown us anything, it shows us how connected we are. What happened in China within weeks was happening here. We live in a cosmopolitan, connected, internationally society. And therefore, we are hearing not just different types of foods, but different ideas, different thoughts, different religions are having an influence on us as a country. Go back 50, 60, 70 years, you had stuff coming from the Far East starting to come in and having a big influence on the way we thought about life and about spirituality. But in those days, you used to have to go and listen to someone speak, or you used to have to go and read a book about something. That's not the case anymore. We are bombarded through social media, through YouTube videos of sound bites of different beliefs and different understandings of the world that try and entice us and say, this is what you need to believe. And then we respond by going, I like that. Oh, and I like that bit. And I like that bit. A bit like that all-you-can-eat buffet of lots of different cuisines from all over the world. And we can take it and we can fill our plates with foods that would never have normally been together. We have a pick and mix understanding of life and a pick and mix understanding of our spirituality. Now, historically, there was a time called the Renaissance, or the Reformation, where actually science and modern ideas started to replace some of the superstition that was linked to religious beliefs. We started to study things. We started to unpack things. And that became the guiding light for us as a society. Is it true? Can I study it? Can I measure it? That was what we call modernity, modernism, being a modern society. We're now in a time of what we call postmodern, where actually we no longer look at what is so much true that we can measure, but what is true for me. I remember I was a sixth form tutor for 4 years at a high school. And we used to talk about these things in certain lessons. And we talk about the fact that we have what's called relative moralism. Relative moralism means what's right and wrong for me isn't necessarily right or wrong for you, because you come from a different society, a different culture. And there is no moral absolute. There's nothing that's absolutely true. Okay? What's true for me isn't necessarily true for you. What's true for you isn't necessarily true for me. And we had this kind of nice kind of feeling about 15 years ago where, I have my truth and you have yours. It's fine what you believe. It's fine what I believe. Let's just, agree to disagree. Unsurprisingly, I think we have moved on from that. That rather than having this nice idea, well, it doesn't matter what you believe and it doesn't matter what I believe, we'll just get on with life. Now we've got to the point where we say, no, I'm right and you're wrong. It's no longer you believe what you want, it's fine. Now it's I'm right and you are wrong. And we end up with different camps, separation, a war almost. We're having a rise in politics of political parties that want to stamp down on things they see wrong. We get more liberal or more conservative. We're widening apart. We see this particularly in American politics, but it's happening all over the world. I'm right, you are wrong. And yet we've still got, I would say, in the majority of us who sit in the middle of these two warring camps, most of us are saying, no, it doesn't matter what you believe. Most of the people you come across in the streets, most of the people you work with, most of the people you are friends with will say, well, I've got my beliefs. And great, you're a Christian. Great, that's really interesting. But as long as you don't preach at me. Did you ever have that? I used to have that. I don't know if it was an insult. They didn't see it as an insult. But they used to say to me, I made it completely clear I was a Christian when I was at work. They used to say, at least you're not like those Christians that ram it down our throats. You just there, you just do good things. That's fine. You do what you do, I'll do what I do. And I'm happy with that, but just don't preach to me. Put your hands up if you had someone say that to you. Just don't preach to me. I'm happy with what you believe, just don't preach to me. So how do we deal with these words of Jesus found in John chapter 14, verse 16? This is Jesus talking an intimate moment with his disciples, his close-knit 12 followers. He says these words to them. It's going to appear on the screen. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Let's just unpack that a bit. So Jesus is saying, firstly, that he's the way, that through his death and resurrection, we would find a way back into a relationship with our Heavenly Father, who we've been talking about and worshiping this morning. He says that the truth, he proclaimed and embodied a truth, black and white. This is true, that is wrong. I am the truth, Jesus says. And he also says, I am the life. In me, you find life and fulfillment in the now, and also in the life in the next as well. But more than that, Jesus says that I'm the way, the truth, and life because he's God. And you're not going, well, where in that is he saying that he is God? Well, there's something in John's Gospels called the famous I am statements. Jesus said numerous times, I am the living water. I am the bread of life. I am, he says over and over again, these phrases, I am. And he's picking up on there the Hebrew name of God, which was Yahweh, I am. We get Jesus saying, which in English seems quite an innocent statement, but because he says, I am, the Jewish authorities pick up stones to kill him, because Jesus was saying, I am God. I am the way, the truth, and the life, because I'm not just an ordinary man. I am God's moved into the neighborhoods. Then he says these really controversial words to us. No one, not anyone, no exceptions, no one comes to the Father, our Heavenly Father, our God in heaven, except through me, except through Jesus. I mean, has Jesus not read the memo? That's not how we do things anymore. There is no absolute truths. There is no right and wrong. I believe what I believe. You believe what I believe. Don't start preaching to me. There is only one way. There is only one truth. There's only one way to life. Because I want to believe what I want to believe. I want to pick and mix. I want a bit of Eastern religion. I want a bit of this. Most people want to go to heaven when they die. But they combine it with lots of other things that suit them. Sound bites they've heard about the Bible or about Buddhism or about New Age, all combined into a pick and mix religion of their own choice. What's right for me is wrong. What's right for me isn't necessarily right for you. See, I think we have lost the confidence, not only that Jesus is the truth, but that truth exists at all. We are so bombarded for years with the world and society telling us that there is no right and wrong, there is no moral absolute, that we have not only lost the confidence that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, but there is any truth at all. See, Jesus says these words in Matthew chapter 7. Last week, I looked at Matthew chapter 6. I said it was from the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus gives some teaching for his disciples, saying, if you're going to follow me, the way, the truth, and the life, these are the things you need to be following. Your righteousness has to be surpassing the righteousness of the Pharisees, who are really just all about living a good life. And after talking about false prophets and false disciples, Jesus gives this parable. He says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rocks. And despite the storms, despite the difficulties, despite the issues that hit you in life, Jesus is a rock. If you build your life on him and his teaching, the way, the truth, and the life, whatever hits you in life, you will remain firm and secure. It doesn't say the storms aren't there. But it says if you build your life on me, then you will stay secure and firm. And he says, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose. Same situation, same things coming at them. The winds blew and beat against that house, but in this case, it fell with a great crash. Steve has kindly lent me this. If you've gone on a walking holiday with Steve, you may have seen him use this. This is a compass. And where's a compass point? North. So I don't even know how to work this. Is it the red one that points north, Steve? So that one's north. Okay. This points. You can tell I don't use compasses very often. I use GPS. This points to north. In fact, more specifically, it points to magnetic north. Now, keep your attention here. I'm going to give you a little of a science geography kind of lesson. The world is a one big magnet. Okay, the whole world is one big magnet. And this points to the top of the world, which is north, and the bottom world, which is south. Magnetic north, magnetic south. Now, did you know that where this points is dependent on where you are in the world? Depending on where you are in the world, there are slight differences in where this will point. It's affected by the magnetic field around you. Okay, so if you're in Outer Mongolia, this will be affected slightly different than if you're in here. Also, did you know magnetic north is moving? Is estimated to move between 34 and 37 miles every year towards Russia. It is becoming Russian, the magnetic north. It doesn't want to be Canadian anymore. It wants to be Russian. It is moving. Magnetic north is not fixed. It's dependent where you are, and it's dependent on where the actual magnetic north is moving. There is something called true north. True north. And true north is found not by looking at anything on the earth, not by the magnetic field, not by any influences around us. Any idea how true north is found? Looking at the stars. It's looking up above at a star, a fixed point that doesn't alter and doesn't move, at least not for about 25,000 years anyway. So how do we apply that to this? Most of us are living our lives by magnetic north. We're trying to fix on something which is moving all the time. We're trying to fix ourselves on something which is affected by those things around us. And actually what we need to do is, rather than fix on something that is moving, we need to fix ourselves on something that doesn't move. And we need to look up, we need to fix our eyes on Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life, who does not change, who is immovable. See, so many times I'm being bombarded on social media, maybe you're the same, with people telling me, you need to believe this. This is the truth. I'm fed up with people, with feeling guilty all the time because I don't agree what everyone seems to be telling me. And these aren't just non-Christians, these aren't just non-churchgoers, these are Christians as well. And I'm looking at Jesus, I'm looking at them saying, this doesn't quite fit, this doesn't quite match. Or maybe you're being told the truth is inside of you. You just need to explore who you are and find the truth about yourself. If you know yourself better, you have that fixed point and you have a better life. I don't know about you, but I have discovered in my years on this earth that I am not to be trusted. I am not to be trusted. If I followed everything I thought was good and right and true, I would get myself in a right mess. In fact, I have got myself in a right mess because I've been convinced that I am right. And a lot of it has been shaped by the way I am feeling. And my feelings are not to be trusted. My mind changes depending on my situation, depending on the people around me, depending on my age. Do you know that as humans, our mind changes the most, and you probably won't be surprised about this, between the beginning of puberty and our mid-20s. Our mind in that period of time, of about 15 years, is constantly changing. And yet we're living in a society where, unfortunately, we have teenagers who are making life-changing decisions based on how they are feeling at a time when their brain is in complete mess and in flux and constant change. You are not to be trusted. I am not to be trusted because we're so affected by the things and people around us. We're so affected by our feelings, whether we're happy, whether we're sad, whether we have a good time, whether we're having a difficult time. We need to fix our eyes on something that never changes, something that is firm, something that is secure, something that is immovable. And the only thing we have is Jesus. next week, Becky is going to preach to us from 1 Peter chapter 2. And in 1 Peter chapter 2, Peter, who writes this letter to a bunch of Christians, says Jesus is our cornerstone. A cornerstone, in case you don't know what it was a large, big stone cut square and laid out perfectly in line, so it was straight that way and straight that way and straight in every which direction. And then from that cornerstone, you would measure the rest of the house. And you would be constantly referring back to that cornerstone. So, if you did that, your house would also be straight that way and that way and that way. Peter says, us as a church, our cornerstone upon which we build is Jesus. Straight, perfect, immovable, never changing. Our reference point for life. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So we're going to take away from this, well, just a couple of things as we come to a close. First one is this. I talked about the fact that we are a world at war. We have people at extremes fighting each other. Everyone's stuck in the middle. The rules in this world, the world tells us, is either you fight or you just kind of don't settle for anything. There is no truth. Don't play by the world's rules. Don't play by the world's rules. We don't have to row through life insecure. We have a firm foundation, that's Jesus. But also, we don't have to end up in two different camps fighting one another. We are called to love, to serve, to listen, to learn, and to help people follow Jesus and discover that he is the way, the truth, and the life. Another thing, I talked about the fact that in social media I'm being bombarded with stuff that just really affects me. And I think for some of you, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the loudest voice in my life? What is having the most influence on me? And ask yourself, is that Jesus? Is that the Bible? God's word for us, living, breathing word that wants to speak to us. Because some of you might need to start shutting out some voices. Start closing your ears to things that are driving you in the wrong direction. And the last thing, I've just said it actually. If you want to know more about Jesus, the firm foundation, the way, the truth, and the life, start by reading the Gospels. If you want a good place to start, I mean, this is a pretty dense book. There's a lot here. It's like, oh, let's start reading the prophets. Oh, my goodness me. Look at the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. 4 accounts of the life, the ministry of Jesus, the way he embodied and proclaimed truth. If you want to know what the truth is, start there. As a church, we want to proclaim that truth. We want to help you guys to follow Jesus, to learn about him, ask questions, explore, read with us, join a home group. This is what we exist for, to help you guys find the way, the truth, and the life. Because no one comes to the Father except through Jesus. In a moment, we're going to sing together, which is a song that picks up some of the themes of this. Also, we're going to be sharing communion together. Communion is a time when we remember the last meal that Jesus had with his disciples before he went to the cross. And Jesus talks about the fact that his body was going to be broken for us, and his blood was going to be shed for us, so that we can have a way to our Heavenly Father. And we're going to be sharing that together. And anyone, wherever they are on their faith journey, if you are trying to follow Jesus, you're welcome to join us in this meal. But before we do that, we're just going to reflect on some questions together.
What shapes what you believe? What are the loudest and most influential voices in your life? have you lost confidence that truth exists? Do you believe that you will be better prepared for the rigors of life if you build on Jesus and his teachings? Which voices do you need to shut out or turn down?
Well, so there's some interesting bits throughout that sermon and that message that Martin brought us today. We thought we'd concentrate on maybe one or two of the questions that came up. The first one, which is, what shapes what you believe? What are the loudest and most influential voices in your life? And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we're just thinking about, is it Facebook? Is it your friends? Is it any kind of form of social media? Because there's other than Facebook.
Yeah, I guess as a Jesus follower, I'd love to say that the only person I listen to is Jesus, but that's not true, is it? If you know what I mean. And then if we're living in the real world, which we are, there's things coming from everywhere, and gossip is another one. That's another one that we all like a bit of gossip to listen to, and then we believe it because we like to believe it.
And that's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's really hard not to get caught up in those conversations where people are maybe even speaking about another person, and you start to believe that the stuff that they're saying is true, and it might not be. It might be, but it might not be. And so it's really hard not to get caught up in those conversations and that kind of belief. And I think this sort of leads on to question 4 a little bit, which is, which voices do you need to shut out or tune down or turn down? And I was just thinking about that, particularly in social media. So I saw a really interesting image of to sort of help you think about social media. That you see a picture of an apple, but in the mirror behind it, it shows the apple bottom and at the back, or bitten away at. But actually, what people are seeing is the perfect red apple at the front. Yeah. And so social media doesn't really tell us truth about people. It tells us what they want us to know about them, or know about life, or know about their beliefs that they're willing to share globally, essentially. Yeah. So it might be things like that. So I think for our next steps going forward from today's session, which might be helpful for you to consider, are, what is your reference point for life? What are you thinking? Well, this is what I stand firm on. This is what I believe in, and this is what sets my path. And also, the influences that can happen to knock you off that are, do you need to tune stuff out? Do you need to turn things down? So do you need to actually have a break from social media, from a particular social media that maybe is actually dragging you down a bit because it's telling you truths that it's making you question yourself or question things? If you have got questions about today's message, and particularly about following Jesus, and that's something new to you and you're not sure about it, we would love to hear from you. And we've got a gotquestions@hawleybaptist.org.uk email. Please do send any questions in. We're ready and willing to have that conversation with you. If you found today useful and this message useful, then please do share it with someone else you think might find it useful to hear as well.
Yep.